Hello everyone, this is Bentley from Kent, Washington, and today we're going to do the first of two interviews with master breeder Dean Tweeddale. Most of you probably know Dean from his appearances on the Aquarium Co-op channel or through the Swisky channel with Jimmy and good old Jimmy Dean, but today we're going to talk about something that I don't think anyone else has really in-depth interviewed him, because this is the thing that's most important to me about what Dean does, and that is his fry system, the way that he raises baby fish, and the ingenious DIY concoction that he has created. So we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna get right into that. So let's enjoy that interview and conversation with Master Breeder Dean.
You can kind of ignore this part. This is not part of it. Okay. That's air. This is water.
Right.
And it's only air so I could do this, hatch eggs.
Okay.
That was put on afterwards. So this is the only part you want. So it's coming from a power head. It comes up into here. The water does, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power head has a fine sponge filter on it, right? It comes across. Anywhere that I've drilled a valve, I can get water. I can adjust it. Like right here, I can turn that on or off. So the power head is way overkill.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's getting back pressure all the time. I don't really care. It's a power head. I can buy a new one. I've never had one break, but I have gone to a bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
So I can turn water on wherever I drill a valve.
Right.
Now you have to buy this type of valve because it has a rubber gasket.
Ah.
Where if you look at the ones back there,
Right. I have those at home.
those do not have a rubber gasket. They will leak.
Okay.
The other type that you see,
So good for air, bad for water.
right? And the only other ones that I found that work for water are these black ones that I use in the water change system. Those are threaded in; they're not pushed in.
I see.
Okay, so I've only found two that work with water. Those or these.
Where did these ones come from?
Gemco.
Okay, they are a Gemco.
But they don't sell them anymore. Or they're out of them.
Of course not.
They do sell them. I think they're just out.
I swear it's like all the ones that I like, they don't have or don't sell anymore.
I know. I went through that same thing. I'm like, okay, then give me the other ones.
Does Gemco carry the
leather ones?
Yeah, the ones up top. Oh, just the... okay.
I forget where the plastic ones come from. I think I get them from Gemco now, too.
Are they also Gemco?
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet, wonderful Gemco.
So anyway, so you got the water coming up, right? We can talk about the trays later, but basically there's one per tray. Now, I've also found I want a little bit of air in those trays. And that's where these tubes are air.
And you're running a hard line?
The reason I run a hard line is this. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so you just flip them in and out.
These are zip ties that have that hole for a screw.
Mm-hmm.
Happen to fit
the hard line.
And
Wow.
I can slide it up, down. I can hold it wherever I want it. I can move it. This one's not. I can move this way, that way.
Yeah, we can see how little air you're pushing, but it's just enough.
It's just enough to break up that biofilm.
And do you also always purposely put the air right into the moss, basically? Or is it just a happenstance that it's ended up like that?
I do that to hold the moss away from the screen in the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because otherwise the screen, you know how moss it'll just float back to the...
Yeah.
So that's why it's there.
And then you're just cutting little pieces of sponge here as your screen.
No, that's going to be another story.
Uh-oh.
We got that right here. So, as you can see, that I've obviously got different sizes.
Yeah.
This size. We can discuss the other shapes and sizes later. But it stems from this size. The front, and I think this is some sort of refrigerator or...
I was going to say, where do these containers come from?
I think I get them at the Container Store.
Okay.
Or Bed Bath & Beyond. Or like this one I found up in Canada in a discount store. I didn't even know they made one half the size, right? So, and I paint them white.
Okay, so
They don't-
you're purposely painting them.
Yeah, they come clear like this.
Yeah.
You can use them clear if you're lazy, but it's really hard to see the fry.
Yeah, it seems so much more useful to see things with it being white.
Yes. So Krylon Fusion, it becomes waterproof once it's dry.
Okay.
I just tape it off, paint it, and you can see it does chip
Over time, yeah.
over time. And it also, the container kind of fogs up, and I don't know if that's from me scrubbing it, or if it's something in my water that etches it.
Yeah, it could be the water.
Something. It could be something, but it doesn't matter. It's not hurting anything, or not that I know of yet.
Well, it's not perfectly clear. It's not amazing and gorgeous. It's clearly not ADA.
Right, right. So the sponge is interesting. I thought about spending the time to glue screens on, like I had done in the tray I showed you previously.
Right.
But do I want to use the lazy word?
Convenient?
Convenient. I like that word better.
Yeah.
Okay. So watch when we pull the sponge out. Got to pull kind of carefully. Now we've got the hole. Right? Are you able to get that?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay. So
It's a wide lens. It sees a lot. Yeah.
Right?
Now, did you cut that in, or was that already there?
I cut that in.
Okay, so you're cutting that in.
And you can cut that in to adjust. If you want just a half inch of water, cut it low.
Yeah.
Whatever. And you notice that this tray's fuller than these.
Yeah, it's cut higher.
I've cut higher.
Ah.
That's on purpose. And I don't have one here because sometimes
Actually, see that difference in the cut?
yeah,
If I get flat on it,
this
you
one's
see
high.
it really well.
That one's you can definitely see it.
Okay.
So sometimes in these where it's lower, it's so I can set a coffee filter in there with eggs, and then I can just have that bubbling faster, more almost like a egg tumbler.
Okay.
And then I can just tip them into the container after they've hatched. I don't really have a coffee filter here to show you, but it's similar. Where is the coffee filter? I don't know where they are. It's somewhat similar to this. You know, you're sitting it in there. You're containing the eggs in a small container.
Yeah.
You can bubble more air in there. It moves them really fast. I've also got egg tumblers, but this is like if I'm doing maybe a dozen Cory eggs. That's all I had.
Or like plecos or something.
Or plecos, something like that, yeah. So that's why the different heights. Now, the sponge. At first, I just shoved a piece of sponge in. So that looks good. That'll work. You know, but then I figured out that I can take this piece of sponge and I just slit it with a knife.
I was going to ask you how you did that, but just
It's
literally a kitchen knife?
A kitchen knife.
Genius.
But you know that my knives are sharp.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So anyway, so you just slit it, and then you figure out, okay, did I slit it deep enough for my slot? Make it fit in the slot, and then it's easier to go in wet or slightly wet, but you just push it in and pull it through till you've got it on both sides, and it'll actually work really well. Kind of like that.
So I would almost argue that the sponge change, while it may be more convenient, is actually smarter. Because I think
It works.
it's easier to replace. If
Easy
you ever
to
have to
replace.
replace, it's actually sort of providing a little bit of filtration.
Which
sort of.
I don't really need, but it's also easier to clean because I just pop it out and.
So I'll say more importantly, it's easier to keep it reliably clean, and you don't have, when you need to replace something, you're not tearing out and regluing.
Right. And there's one other thing I found if I leave the fish in here too long, which I have done because I don't have tanks to put them in, the level in the container starts coming up as the bottom inside of the sponge gets plugged up with debris. So it'll keep flowing because as you come up the sponge, it's going down and through.
Yeah.
So it's also safer than having a screen that plugs up.
Yeah, because if the screen plugs up, it's going to overflow.
It's going to overflow, right. Now, if it overflows, chances are it's going to go in the tank. Yeah, it maybe could come out the front. But chances are it's going to go in the tank. And I don't have any emergency overflow holes drilled in that. I could, but I don't. Never had that problem yet. So it's basically this tray. These are stainless steel screws that they're just so it fits the tank, and I think it's, what's that stuff called, shrink wrap? Yeah, the shrink wrap on the threads.
Oh, yeah,
for the screws.
Kind of like a rubberized plastic.
Yeah.
Similar to what they put around electronic wires.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. And so they just sit there. Now, so those are stationary. They're not going to move. Wherever I put them, if I want to slide it this way, I can slide it this way, I can slide it that way. They stay there.
Just sit there.
Right. And I can fit 4 of these large ones at one time, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can fit 3 of these narrow ones, but I've only found 2 of these narrow ones ever, so I just bought
them. You can fit 3, but you only have ever found 2.
Right.
So just don't gamble on finding the thin ones. Is
Right.
what we've gone with.
Right. Now, other tray. Oh, here's the coffee filters. This is what I'm talking about. So you set the water level so it doesn't come over the top, and then you hatch in the coffee filters. Works really good for small batches of like Cory eggs, small batches of pleco eggs, but I never run any drugs in the tank, ever.
Okay.
So if you're going to methylene blue them, then I use a container like what I've got in that tank.
Right, where you've got the separate container.
Separate
has the
container.
methylene blue.
It hatches. I'll change water in there until the methylene blue's gone, and then I'll move those fry to the tray.
Now, when you're doing that, how often are you changing that water to get the methylene blue out?
I start when they're wiggling.
Okay.
And I'll do half the water twice a day. Just doesn't take that long because I only use 1 drop of methylene blue in there.
No, so you're tiny amounts of water, just enough to kind of
just enough to tint the water. Yeah. I mean, we used to, in the quote old days, where we didn't have accurate drops of methylene blue. We used to, okay, it's that blue. We just learned to tip.
Yeah, figure out the color.
The color
as opposed to the volume.
Right. Exactly. So that's where the coffee filters came in. So that's the big tray. You saw the old ancient trays.
Yeah. For those while I wasn't recording.
Oh. Okay. Bring them back.
Just this also, I think, is just like a genius technique of creating this little raft.
Yeah, this is vintage, So
it's vintage Dean tech right here.
Right. And this one, and what came with this tank is the little stainless steel eyelets.
Oh yeah, I see.
And then I have these. I can't really show you because there's. No, I can show you. Will it? Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Keep the air out of the way. Put the water in there. So, I wanted it to stay in the same place. So I drilled these little holes in the rim and these little stainless steel pins with some of my daughter's beads.
Oh, so that I was curious how those pins work. The first tour I saw, when there's just this brief glance past, I had noticed those little pins sticking out, and it was when you were using these trays before you had swapped to this like absolutely genius
I still
thing
use
here.
these. I still use these.
Still use them.
These work different fish for different trays.
Okay.
If I'm artificially raising discus, I want this tray.
Why?
Because it has gently sloped sides. Discus tend to feed off of the parents at first.
Okay.
The sides on these don't work. I can keep the food contained. Now, we'll put this tray in the water so you can actually see how it floats. Or put water in the tray.
Just put it through a little screen.
So it's more typically like this.
Oh, the raft is just really containing it of all other things.
Right. All the raft is doing is keeping it floating. And in you have what I need. I'm gonna grab a towel off the chair.
Oh.
In doing this process, I learned. You see the little ridge on the tray?
Yeah.
I never have the water come above that because fish get trapped on the ridge.
On the ridge.
Right. So that's why, no, you can never buy one of these trays from me ever. I have about 6 or 8 of them. I've had them since.
And when was the last time they made these trees, Dean?
These were early microwave dinner trays, like.
For you young folks, that's the early 90s.
In the early 90s.
And late 80s.
And the thing about them is, find me a microwave tray that's that thick. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's not
it's heavy
super
duty.
thin. Yeah, you can tell by how relatively thin or little the flex is.
Yeah.
And you're putting good pressure on that.
Yeah.
Especially those when you get to this bull nose that's through here.
It's super strong. You can't even do it.
Yeah, it's
so
nothing's gonna be made like that nowadays.
Someday, that's my daughter ringing the doorbell, but she knows how to get in. Just so in case you know. Someday,
Still being polite despite it being Dad's house.
I would like to vacuum for my own.
So I have a friend that has a vacuum form
No
machine.
ridge, nothing in the bottom, just smooth it and get the right material where it's thicker.
Much thicker. Yeah.
I have done, obviously you've seen the slot car track upstairs.
Right.
I have vacuum formed Lexan before, where you just pull it,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the heating thing. But at that point I wasn't thinking tray. So what I would have to do is mold this, right? Make the mold.
Yeah.
Sand it, get it how I want the mold. I understand that part. And then have it vacuum formed. I have to make some sort of ridge thing. That would be ideal.
You'd almost you might have to do like a 2-part mold.
Right. You'd have to do a 2-part mold.
A friend of mine, just random note for now people that will hear this, I used to do arcades and pinball machines. And a friend of mine vacuum forms custom pieces for pinball machines.
There you go.
So, and things like that are quite common for what he does.
Right. So, so it just sits in there. Like I said, I've used these trays since the early 90s. Now, the closest thing I've found to them, and I happen to like these for rainbow eggs a lot.
Yeah, because you can't really do, you got to be so specific with rainbow eggs. They're such touchy little buggers.
This is a Sterilite bowl. Actually, incorrect. Rainbow fry. Rainbow eggs I hatch in the gallon jar. Because I put the whole mop in.
Are you keeping them in meth blue when you do that?
One or 2 drops.
Just a little tiny amount.
Yeah. But this, now we'll have to get rid of that and float this now. So, good morning. And we can do this because we're used to working with water, right?
Yes.
Not going to hurt anything.
What's up, buddy?
So this guy I came up with when we were dealing with Gary's.
Right.
Because in my early days of raising discus, we used to use metal bowls, they're about 9-10 inches diameter, that were, what's it called, enamel? Remember the white camping enamel bowls?
Yeah.
That's what we used to raise discus in.
Interesting.
You change the water 3 or 4 times a day. You would either float the bowl in a tank or your room would be hot.
And was it, again, part of it because you wanted that rounded surface
It's
as opposed to a flat?
You want that smooth, rounded surface on the outside. Yeah. Because you would put food on the flat, or on the slope. And then we would change the water a couple times a day because the food you'd feed would cause what do they call that? Anyway, some sort of bacteria that killed the fish really quick if you didn't change it out.
Okay.
So this is made from a sterilite bowl. And by the way, I'm very particular. I shopped for these bowls for months before I found this one, because I wanted completely smooth inside. There's so many bowls, and it's plastic. So many plastic bowls out there that have ridges or edges. I wanted no ridge, no edge, nothing. Wouldn't you think sterile? Why not? Right? They make them in 2 sizes. They do make a bigger one. I have not made a tray out of a bigger one yet. So it floats. This is called backing rod.
Okay.
In construction, they use this to seal between framing and windows. And so they can caulk.
Yeah.
Right? I measured the exact length of backing rod, cut it, and then before I glued it to here, I silicone that length together. That's the hard part. You see there will be one little seam.
You're pre-doing the seam.
Pre-did the seam, let that dry overnight, and then I completely siliconed it to the bowl such that you can see there's a whole bead of silicone around
a really strong bead.
And it's a real strong bead underneath where you can't see it. And it floats. So that now I can't run water into it.
Right.
Because I don't have a screen. I don't have a way for it to exit. That might be coming in another rendition. Because it could work.
Yeah.
But it'll float with, a lot of water or just a little. So it depends on what you're putting in there.
Yeah, what you're going for.
Yeah.
So I've tried, and I've documented this on other videos, those the German breeding rings that Swiss Tropicals carries.
I have one of those too. You want me to grab it?
No.
Okay, so you've already got a video on it. Yeah.
So the problem that I've run into with those is that what they come with pre-built is too fine a mesh on the bottom, and it will collect food particles and start creating a heck of a mess.
Yeah.
In the end,
I've actually used one of those also, and
I like the concept, but I would want to alter it some.
It's not, the execution is not quite there.
Yeah, and the foam is very fragile because it's just basic styrofoam as opposed to something like what you're doing here, which, if I took the time and replaced it with, say, a similar solution to this bowl, it would be much better.
The other issue
I probably will with mine because I paid enough for them. I want them to work.
Yeah.
And I like them.
Yeah.
But
well, the issue I had with them is I used to keep a little bit larger fry in the bottom. Don't do that anymore. And they would attach themselves to the bottom of that thing and suck the fry through. I mean, they couldn't really suck the fry through, but you understand what I'm saying. If a fry came down there, they could put enough suction where they're going to...
Yeah, they get stuck.
They'd get stuck and kill them. Yeah. And the mesh thing. I want something that's more bulletproof.
Yeah.
I also... That has to float with the tube, right? This, I can put water wherever I want. Right.
So your system, I think, is like one of the most genius DIY things I've seen, and we've talked in part of a person who's doing a different system that can be very interesting for its density, but has some risk involved too.
Yeah, there's risk. Yeah.
Where this is just a really solid system.
Yeah, and ideally, if I had a fish room 10 times this size, I would have 4 of these in a row.
Yeah, so part of the secret reason why I'm doing this is
you don't have the space either.
I don't have the space right now.
Right.
But when I can do my garage, I want to do, a line of these.
Yeah.
Almost replicate this straight up.
I agree.
Because this system is perfect, especially for rainbows. Like, you look at all these little fish here. No problem, little touch of moss.
Those are actually rams.
Are they rams?
Rams, and in the bottom are C109 catfish.
Oh, super cute.
And these guys, this has rams and some black otters.
Oh, some of the black otters already are cool.
Yeah. And I can't remember. I think there's just a couple black otters in here. This was as an experiment later. Yeah, there's just a couple black otters in here.
I was gonna say they don't look like rainbows, but the water size and the density you can get in this is perfect for a rainbow fish.
Plus, if you think about it, like I've switched my filtration a little bit since, because I used to run an AquaClear on the end.
Right.
Now I'm running it into that canister, whatever that type is.
Little arena.
Yeah. If I had more space, you could do a sump under 4 of them.
So you're thinking, you are literally saying exactly what I want to do. Because I can run it to a sump full of plants.
You could put plants. You could put UV on it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
run UV.
There's a lot of things you could do if you had, like a lot of things I could do. I have thought about, would it work with 40 breeders? I mean, you got more water, which is going to be better.
You need a bigger tray.
You could have bigger trays, but you don't need bigger trays. But the only issue is a 40 breeder is 6 inches deeper that way.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you have the space, but then you got to figure out how to support the tray.
Right. That's what I'm thinking is you need those longer trays that will go front to back.
Right.
In order to fit there.
But do you want a longer, bigger tray?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Part of the reason this works, I think, in my opinion, is you've got the fry close to the food in those first few days.
So I'd almost think if you had more space, I would want a center row of these, so I could put 220 longs front to back, running a back to back fry system,
right? And
run in a space where I could have 4 tanks, run 8, right.
Totally agree.
And I think this size just is a consistent of how well these fit, the water volume you can get, and also honestly just what little room it takes up is perfect.
Works. Yeah,
just perfect.
And the only other thing that would make it better is if you didn't have a shelf right above it, so you could be in there with your head.
Yeah, completely open.
Yeah, that's the other thing I would do.
Yeah, make much like a fry bench or something, so you have a lot more room.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, because then because you know it's, and I've said this many times in different ways, but it's the first few days is going to make the biggest difference in a fish's life.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be the first few days that keep it alive or not.
With rainbows, it is definitely the first few days.
Especially
it's the first,
rainbows.
2 weeks.
Rams.
I have not tried rams.
You know, any of those ones that were the tetras, any of the ones where the eggs are teeny. Angelfish, you know, I can put angelfish in there. Fine. They could be in here a week and then go to a tank. But rainbows, they're going to be in here for 2-3 weeks. Rams, same thing, 2-3 weeks. Catfish fry actually work really well at keeping the container clean.
Yeah.
But you don't want the catfish fry in there until they're big enough to hurt the fry.
Eric Bodrock out in Pennsylvania, he has a big thing of when he raises rainbows, he puts young cories in the bottom.
Yep.
To clean up after them and to help keep the system cleaner overall.
Yep. I do that you notice a lot of my fry tank have the baby plecos in the bottom.
Yeah.
Or baby catfish. Same reason. It keeps the tanks cleaner. Gives you something else to trade or sell.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really add a ton to your bioload. Your bioload, you're going to do water changes. If you're an advanced aquarist, you're going to do that anyway. So you're going to know if you're putting too much in there. And so you just, you put what you need. And it works.
Sweet. So now what you really need to do is figure out a commercialized way to build this out. And
Well-
there's your retirement business, right?
Yeah, because what you need the water supply,
Mm-hmm.
you need an air supply, and I did think about putting, because my air is up here, it's screwed in there.
Yeah.
It's in PVC also, but when I found these things fit the rigid tubing, and it's just a zip tie. How easy is that?
Yeah,
You
that is just genius.
it's so easy.
And
That's my reason for using the rigid, is because I couldn't.
it perfectly fits in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like this wonderful happenstance that just occurs.
Yes.
But I mean, I think a lot of DIY for fish keeping is like that. It's some random idea that is the right connection of things you wouldn't normally associate with fish keeping,
Right.
and then you went into this like amazing fry system.
It's like these trays. I probably bought 15 different trays before I found that. Oh, it fits on the lip,
Yeah.
and that really stabilizes it.
Well, that's the other thing. The 40 breeder lip is a lot bigger. I don't know if
It might
that
not
would
fit.
lip
It might
properly.
not. It might not.
You might just have like the right magical combination.
Yeah. But I like your idea of putting them back to back.
Yeah, running two.
Like if you had a center spot in your room,
Right.
that maybe you don't want tanks above it so you can see around,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where you put the fry. Makes it easy.
It's almost like that might be what I'm planning for my fish room. Maybe just a little.
Maybe?
Maybe just a little.
Yeah.
Because I want to do. I was really thinking very specifically about how I want to raise fry and how I want to place them in that space ahead of time. Whether I want to do like a big wall that's just where I raise all my fry, or if it's like once it hits a certain size, there's racks of tanks on a wall, and then a very open bench system, so I can very easily monitor at the most fragile stage.
Right. I agree.
And I really kind of settled, especially after like looking at this and this kind of short conversation, and really settling into that idea.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I say that I'm still probably
And you
2 years out from mine.
I mean, what's the other thing that's this footprint? They have a 33. That's the 4-foot one, right?
Yeah, it's just a 33 long, or no, the exact footprint is the 40 long. That's 4 foot.
It's the same frame size.
Right, it's the same
so.
frame. It's just longer.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, you could technically do it in a 55, but the 55 is going to have the center bar somewhere.
Yeah, and be a lot taller. I don't know that you want it that tall.
Well, you just lower the shelf.
Sure.
You get this to this. I mean, if this was in that center, it's going to be so when I'm standing here, it might be here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not.
Yeah, you don't have to lean. You can just look and easily work.
Yeah. And I'm big into rolling chairs, and that's actually a drafting chair that you're sitting in.
Yeah.
So it's adjustable, so you could.
Just spin around.
Yeah. So you could work from the chair.
Now you just got to motorize it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Go the old Tim Allen method.
But I could easily see if you raise this up a little, you have room for a sump. You could do a sump that would do 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had the space, think you got 1, 2, and then 1 across each end.
Yeah, you could raise a lot of fish.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I keep thinking about that. Okay, if you've got that much space that you can dedicate to that, maybe at some time this tank is going to be, okay, I'm going to bring the tray out into it for now.
Mm-hmm.
You still got the auto water change on it. You're still on the sump. You're still feeding baby brine and baby food, so you're not overtaxing the rest of the system.
Yeah, and you can create a very large bioload on a sump.
Yeah,
and barely dent it.
And you can use it for, potentially if you need the space for a grow out. It's possible. It would work.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dean, for talking about your amazing fry system.
Yeah, you bet. It's fun. No one else asks about it.
Well, like I said, I saw the first tour I ever saw before I even met you. This was the thing that stood out the most to me. This right here, in its previous incarnation, where the white trays were in there.
Right.
I saw that and I went, oh, please talk about that. And
Yeah.
didn't talk about it at all.
I know.
It was more about the Rams and the Angels, which, you know, they deserve some love. They're
Yeah.
awesome fish, and you're phenomenal at them. But this is what I care about.
My first one doing this was a 10-gallon tank.
Really?
Yeah, and I traded to someone for a pair of Plecos. They've never used it.
Where is this person?
I'm
going to go acquire it.
They live in the Kent Highlands. She's the woman that sells eggs up, and she used to have a whole bunch of big aquariums.
Okay.
Well, I cannot remember her name for the life of me. She's not been to a club meeting since. But the 10-gallon, these did not fit.
You have to use the older trays.
I had to, yeah. Or I had some other tray that I gave her. I can't remember what it was. The 20 long is far better.
Hello, Kitty.
Hey, get that foot. Thank you.
The trained cat that doesn't step in the fish room.
Yeah.
But will complain.
Yeah. So I really like the 20 long. And, you know, like you said, if you had the space,
Yeah, you could do
you could
some
drill
really
'em,
amazing stuff.
Drill them with the overflow. You know, you could. I mean, I've thought about adding a UV sterilizer, but where's it going to go now?
You could fit one of the small internal ones kind of cocked to the side.
Well, see, that's one of the things I'm trying to get rid of the internal stuff. I'm ready to pull that sponge out because if I put a tray there, then it's bubbling the whole time. Now that I've got the canister with more filter area, I don't really need that. This was a big plus.
Little power head.
Well, it's one of those circulators to keep anything from settling on the bottom. And I still get a little bit, but my thought is, if that sponge wasn't there, that would blow over to the intake of the...
Probably, yeah.
Cool. But it worked. It definitely works. It's cool.
Well, there you go, guys. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. As you could probably tell by some of the camera work, I was so enthralled and just right in there with Dean's conversation that sometimes I'm too focused on what he's holding, not necessarily looking at Dean's face. But I apologize for that. We'll get a little better at that in the future. But more importantly, I think the information Dean has there is just incredible. He has a system that is designed for raising all sorts of fish and with different little DIY like socketable pieces based on the type of fish you're trying to raise in that system, which I think is better than anything else I've seen anyone else do. There's some great fry raising systems out there. You give examples like Lucas Bretz, who's got a tremendous rack system that he's doing, but this is a really fine-tuned machine that is done by somebody who has decades of experience raising fry, and I think it is just the epitome of what anyone could hope for in a combination of DIY and experience. That being said, what did you learn? Let me know down in the comments what part of the Dean's fry system you thought was the most interesting. Is it how he evolved it? Is it a specific setup that's in there, one of the specific trays? Is it the way that he pumps the water through? Let me know down in the comments. And then next week, we're going to go in a conversation with Dean about two things: breeding autosynclus and live food, and how they're very, very connected, because as you're going to learn, to breed autosynclus, live food might be something you need to do. That interview is going to be mostly audio. There's going to be some B-roll of going around Dean's place, mostly because my camera is out of power, but as I use my cell phone. And that video is not as good as the one we just saw, just because the lighting in Dean's room, there's light from all angles, so it kind of confused the sensor on my cell phone. So it's not the prettiest video, but I've worked really hard to make sure the audio is really great. So we'll dive into that next week. I hope you're looking forward to it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.